Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside District Commander Volume 3, Kandahar, Afghanistan, 2009. This is a game designed by Brian Train and published by Hollandspiele Games. This is the third in the District Commander series, the first one Virtualia and the second Bin Din I had already shown on the channel, and now we'll close it out here with Volume 3. Brian has made a lot of games on counterinsurgency in his career, and he is really one of the best counterinsurgency game designers there is. He really knows the subject very, very well and knows how to convey the difficulties and challenges of dealing with counterinsurgency at the national level. So let's take a look at the back of the box and see what this game is all about. Time 2009-2010. Place Southern Afghanistan. Situation. The local Afghan National Security Forces commander is tasked with keeping their area secure and relatively peaceful. They not only must contend with the Quetta-Shura Taliban, but also local warlords and organized crime elements. This is especially difficult given the tools at their disposal. Homegrown forces are poorly trained and sporadically supplied. Support from the units and assets of the International Security Assistance Force is unpredictable. And as always, the resources available might change and operational goals might shift with the blowing of political winds. And over on to the right it says, Brian Train has designed more than one game covering the war in Afghanistan. You might be wondering, what does this one have to offer? We think that District Commander system, with its emphasis on bluff and deception, and the use of secret and changing scoring strategies for each side, is an especially good fit for capturing the pace and nature of operation in Afghanistan. And the components, it says, there is a 22 by 17 inch map, 264 counters, double-sided play aid, 2-player display sheets, 16-page system rulebook, 8-page module rulebook, and 10 strategy cards. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. All right, we've got our cards, series rules, game-specific rules, sheet and a half of counters, our player aid, our player mats, and our map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. It is the province of Kandahar in southern Afghanistan, bordering Pakistan. And if you've seen any of the other videos, if you're familiar with the District Commander series or the coin series, this is going to look very familiar to you. You have the different areas, and inside of each area you have an underground box as well as a population and terrain modifier number, which will affect operations and combat. You have the Pakistan box over here, which is where the insurgent forces can move to. Government forces cannot follow them into the Pakistan box. Now we'll take a look at the player aids that come with the game. The first two are the player mats. This is the insurgent player mat. At the top, you have the all-purpose record track where you'll keep track of your task points as well as your score. Below that, you have the units available for deployment, militia available for recruitment, and disrupted units and assets boxes. And at the very bottom, you have the insurgent strategy that you'll choose, and that is how you'll determine your score throughout the game. And we have the same information on the government player's mat. The only difference being the Kandahar airfield box is they're available for the government player. Don't forget, on the back of these mats, we have further information on other games in the District Commander series, as well as designer's notes from Brian Train about his design intent in different aspects of the series. In the final player aid, we have the sequence of play, which lists out all the steps for the planning and preparation phase, the operations phase, and the turn end phase. And on the back, we have the mission chart, which lists out all the missions available to both players. The patrol is only used by the government player. Ambush and intimidate are only used by the insurgent player. All other missions are available to both players. And we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. The insurgent units here in orange. We have militia units, guerrilla units, assets for the insurgents. Down here we have intel counters and dummy counters. Over here we have the infrastructure units, which are all the assets necessary for civilized society. And up here at the top right are your chance chits. And this is what you're going to use to determine the outcomes of combat and missions, because this is a diceless system. And we finish out the insurgent forces on the second sheet with the main force units. At the top we have the government forces and government assets, as well as non-state militias in yellow. Now we'll take a look at the strategy cards that are available to both the government and the insurgent forces. We'll start with the insurgent forces. This gives you each of the 5 different strategies that are available to you, including the scoring points and any penalties that you may incur based on the strategy that you choose. And the same for the government forces, all the victory points that you can score and any penalties that might ensue based on the strategy you choose. And there is further detail on the bottom of each of the cards. And we'll take a look at the series rules that come with the game. This is a 14-page rulebook. We have the table of contents on the front cover, so you can easily reference any rule that you have questions on. And as is the case with all series games, once you learn the base rules, it's easier to go from game to game in the series. And there are 3 games available. This is the 3rd one. There is a 4th one forthcoming. We have the introduction, the game concepts, and components all explained to you here for the next couple of pages, including all of the breakdown of all the different counters that are in the game. And then we get to the player aids, strategy cards, and then setting up the game on page 4. And we have the sequence of play, and it lists out the entire sequence of play, and it breaks it down further underneath that. Planning and preparations phase, random event segment, command and planning segment, your deployment segment, and then the intelligence segment. Then we get into the operations phase, and this is where you're going to be doing your missions. It explains to you all the different missions that are available to you, like patrol, attack. It has a text example sprinkled throughout the book. There are no illustrated examples. Everything is just text examples: ambush, build friendly infrastructure, reduce enemy infrastructure, recruit and promote militia, intimidate, remove terror, disrupting units, terrorize areas. And then we get to the turn-in phase, redeployment segment, the victory point adjustment segment, and the appeal to authority segment. Then underneath that, we get to special rules for militia, infrastructure units, government combat unit modes, and then advanced optional rules if you want to introduce assets, foreign combat units and assets, intelligence segment. Then we have the scenarios and setup instructions, the optional variations on play, and then we are at the back of the rule book. Then we get to the game-specific rules. This is a 4-page rulebook. The table of contents is on the front cover, just as with the series rules. The inside of the front cover, we have the introduction, game concepts, and components. This will explain to you any differences that are in this game versus what is in the series rules. That's why it follows the same format. Planning and preparations phase, the operations phase, the turn-in phase, and then the optional units and rules are all listed out for you and what they do in this game. Then we have the intelligence chits, the criminal units, non-state militia, and then scenarios and setup instructions are on page 4. You have your historical scenario, and then you also have a free deployment scenario, so you have freedom to set up as you want if you don't want to follow along with the historical scenario. And then you have the random deployment scenario, and then optional variations on play, and that carries over to page 6. And then on the back, we have the random events table. And that is a look at everything you get inside of District Commander Kandahar. This is a game designed by Brian Train and published by Hollandspiele Games. If you're into counterinsurgency, Brian Train is definitely the guy to check out. If you've not played any of his games before, you can jump into any of them and you're in for a real treat. Brian knows counterinsurgency really well and explores it in different ways through various games. This is not a very kinetic, situation. You're not dealing with the stand-up hex and counter type of game. Counterinsurgency is different. It's its own animal. And by playing these games, you get to experience the difficulties that are faced by nations that are dealing with counterinsurgency. And that's what I like about this, because, as wargamers, we like the standard kinetic fight. You get in there and you just have a brawl. Here, things you have to be you have to fight at times, and there is a time and place to fight, but you also have other things that you have to concern yourself with, and that's what I like about these games. It makes you think outside the box a little bit as when it comes to what wargamers generally do think of when it comes to war games. So definitely one to check out is Kandahar if you're into this theater. If not, there are 2 others in the series available now. There is Virtualia as well as Binned In. I've covered those on the channel already, so you can check those videos out if you've not already done so and see what those games are all about. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. You have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.